There was a thread started by the kids on the underground, and it said, "Can Gordon Ryan do MMA?" Now, right out of the gate, allow me to answer that question. Of course, Gordon Ryan can do MMA. Gordon Ryan's got 3 world championships. He's the sitting, reigning champion of the world in submission grappling. A better way to ask that question would be, how would Gordon do in MMA? Which I think is what was meant by the question anyhow. That's an interesting one. Here's the thing with Gordon Ryan, okay? He just won 2 world championships over the weekend, his weight class plus the absolute division, but he was a reigning world champion. The only person that could beat Gordon Ryan of last year is Gordon Ryan of today. He is much better now than he was a year ago when he sat atop of the throne. The relevance to that is the improvements that he's making. And when you talk about a great athlete, particularly a combat athlete, who's used to outscoring opponents, who's used to going when they're tired, who's used to dealing with adversity, who's used to making weight, who's used to competing in front of people with the lights on and cameras running. When you're dealing with somebody like that, okay, they have a significant advantage right out of the gate. So now you're talking about, can he transition? Can he learn the wrestling? Can he learn to get on top? Can he learn what submissions not to do in MMA because it makes you susceptible to strength? Sure. I see no evidence as to why not, particularly when you look at the gains that he's making. When you're the champion of the world, if you spent one day of your life better than anybody else alive at that chosen field, craft, art, sport, that would be a remarkably rare thing to do, okay? He is now going on 30 months of being the best in the world at his art. Oh, and by the way, he's now better than he was when he started. Meaningfully better. Gordon Ryan of today versus Gordon Ryan of 2 years ago kicks Gordon's ass in about 6 or 7 minutes. About 6 or 7 minutes, today Gordon beats old Gordon. That's relevant. It's very relevant that somebody could stay motivated, that somebody could gain, that somebody could grow, that somebody could get better, that somebody would not become complacent, that somebody would not become arrogant, that somebody would not rest on their laurels. So looking at his ability to gain skills, even in his own chosen craft, it's something that is very evident that, yes, of course he could learn a jab and a cross and a leg kick, close the distance a little different, come from an upright posture as opposed to bending over. But I will acknowledge he's not a shoo-in. I will acknowledge that. His training partner, Gary Tonin, made the transition with very similar skills to Gordon, and Gary's undefeated in MMA. But he took his time, and he focused on it, and he practiced, and he worked hard. I use it as an example because Gary also did all the things in grappling, all the same tournaments, all the same events that Gordon has now followed. So I trust that Gordon looks to Gary, knows what to do, will be mentored, and copy that. It's a very good recipe. But not everybody that goes from a great grappling art into MMA does well, very obviously. We've seen Olympic champion wrestlers smoked, never win a fight. We have seen a world champion jiu-jitsu player. Andre Galvao comes to mind, and I don't actually know his record. I think he's 0-1. If I'm wrong, he's 1-1. And he openly just said, it's a different kind of training. It's a different kind of performance. I didn't really see it as the same level of combat. I had a conversation with TJ Dillashaw on this very topic that you guys may recall. If you don't, let me refresh you. TJ Dillashaw was a scholarshiped, starting Division I athlete. He did not have a meaningful career. If I had not just told you that he was a starting scholarship Division I athlete at Cal State Fullerton, you likely never would have known that. It was not remarkable. He did not set the world on fire. But he learned certain things such as work ethic, such as discipline. Largely because he did not have the kind of college career that he wanted to have, it kept that fire and that drive. He then transitioned to mixed martial arts, and he just found his sport. Became the champion of the world. Did have a remarkable career, will forever be remembered. But it's a matter of finding your sport. I don't know if MMA is Gordon's sport. I don't know that it's, neither do you guys. None of us know. Gordon doesn't know, right? We know it's not his sport right now. We know that he has no pressure, no apprehensiveness about going out and competing and grappling with anybody. That's a very valuable and rare skill set, particularly in MMA. But he may not have that in MMA. He may look at MMA and go, man, that's just a different animal. Those strikes, that's just a different animal. The great Rickson Gracie himself pointed out, you can be a black belt. The first time you get punched, you're a brown belt. The second time you get punched, you're a purple belt. You get punched again, you become a white belt. That's a very real thing. So there's a transition and there's a training. There's a process. I will tell you, as far as the skills go, where jiu-jitsu is at right now has never been higher. Abu Dhabi it's simply never been better. Absolute fire. Wonderful. Production was wonderful through Flow. The announcer, Ricardo and Kenny come to mind. These guys, it was so good. But the athletes also put on a lot more exciting and a lot better performances. A lot of that had to do with half guard and half guard sweeps, and ultimately went into from knee bars to foot locks to heel hooks. A lot of leg attacks. Leg attacks simply do not exist in mixed martial arts for a number of reasons. Your entire body is now wrapped around a guy's leg. Both your legs, your hips, your torso, and both your hands are tied up on a guy's legs. If you fail, you are widely exposed for any kind of a shot the guy wants to give you. One of the reasons Ryan Hall became such an exciting fighter so quickly and gained so much notoriety for that, was it a 14-second finish over BJ Penn? It wasn't just the Iranami roll that he hit that was fascinating to watch. It's because he finished into a heel hook. We just don't see that. In MMA, we just don't see that. It's out there a little bit. When I say it doesn't exist, of course, that's a broad stroke, and you could find a time or two I'm wrong. But most of us, to go off of memory and not have to go search some data bank, go talk to some researcher, are going to remember the last leg lock being done in 1994 by Oleg Tiktarov when he went into a rolling knee bar, which is a very simple technique, but none of us knew it at the time. I bring that up for you because a lot of the jiu-jitsu, though it is much better, the grappling is much better. It is much more beautiful, it is much more scientific, it is much more technical. I feel, one guy's opinion, that it actually is going further away from MMA. In many ways, it's going further away. In many ways, the main thing you need to know about grappling is how to get on top. There are not very many submissions out there, even if you were to go back to the olden day. And don't forget, the olden day is a very relevant time. When Royce Gracie got into this, he didn't get into this to become the world's best fighter to make money at fighting. He and his family got into this as a marketing tool to get people to sign up for their jiu-jitsu gyms. It's very relevant because people didn't know jiu-jitsu at the time. As a matter of fact, in 1995, just by example, there was 6 Gracie certified jiu-jitsu gyms in all of America. 6. I ended up at one. It was Pedro Sauer's. Pedro Sauer was the last or most recent at that time. He became number 6. When I came in to sign up, Pedro Sauer told me, I am one of 6. I am the most recent Gracie certified gym in all of America. That's why I know that stat. But the point is, those really were secret techniques. You'll hear about some guy that's got secret techniques and he'd try to sell you a DVD. And that used to be a real thing 50 years ago. And the secrets of this culture or the secrets of this continent or the secrets of this master. And we all found out there really wasn't a whole lot of secrets, but that didn't mean, when I say there wasn't a whole lot, it didn't mean there wasn't any. Jiu-jitsu had secrets. They had moves that nobody had ever seen before. The internet wasn't around. Unless you went into the gyms and paid your you weren't going to learn these moves. If you didn't know those moves, you could be in real trouble in mixed martial arts. Even with that said, back when it was a big secret, it wasn't some easy work to go out there and dominate. And I can remember Royce himself being in there with Dan Severn, who had never done a single jiu-jitsu match in his life. And yes, Royce beat him, but it was 30 minutes of a beating later, just by example. So then it began to transition to, as long as you can get on top and you spend 6 weeks learning how to stop a guy's hips from swinging into an armbar, block a guillotine and stay out of a triangle, you're going to be fine. And that was true. You can go on and win world championships with just that. To make believe that now somehow the submission game is ahead of where it was back when nobody knew submissions is simply a thing of fiction. When you see a submission, what you're really seeing is a guy who's tired and he's ready to go. He's ready to get out. He will often turn his back. That's a very big one. The rear naked choke. A very common technique, but very rarely actually works in mixed martial arts. It works when the opponent is ready to exit stage left. Arm bars and kimuras and these kind of techniques, they don't really work as much as they appear to work. Now, I don't bring that to bring down jiu-jitsu in the least. I am a jiu-jitsu guy. I have a black belt in jiu-jitsu that I'm very proud of, but I am aware that from a grappling standpoint, largely, you just want to get on top. So when you take some of these great grapplers, but they're largely doing it and their submissions are largely coming from positions that are not on top, you could at least have a conversation of how they will transition.